Welcome to the Treasury Elite Leadership Series. I would like to thank all our viewers and members for supporting this noble cause of Treasury Elite, whose main objective is networking, knowledge sharing, and mentoring. Time and again, we bring in world class speakers and thought leaders across the world in the field of Treasury, financial markets, and management, and conduct various programs, webinars, and conferences in different formats. Treasury Elite Leadership Series is one such format where we learn from industry leaders about their experiences of running their businesses, opportunities and challenges they encounter, and broad trends they see for the future. Today we have Mr. Anuraag Srivastava. Anurag is a Group Chief Financial Officer of Sterlite Power since 2018. He is responsible for strategic financial management, M&A, legal and secretarial functions for the firm. His areas of responsibility include financial planning, equity and debt finance, M&A, investor relations, tax, audit, risk management, etc. Anurag is a chartered accountant with more than 2 decades of experience, both in domestic and international roles. Prior to his current role, he has been in the finance leadership role across consumer, retail, infrastructure, and telecom businesses. He has earlier worked across a spectrum of various leadership roles at Tata Tele, Industars, and GSK. Welcome, Anurag. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you. Doing really good. Thanks for having me. It's great to interact and speak with you.
Glad to have you as a part of Treasury Elite Leadership Series. In the next 35 minutes, we'd love to hear from your experience. So, my first question to you is we would love to know about your transitions across various roles and three major learnings that you have had over all these years.
Yeah. So, Abhishek, thanks. And it was a really nice introduction as well. You covered a lot of my experience. I think I carry experience of multiple sectors, and each sector is very different from the other one, and with different sort of funds or different sort of strategies that a CFO would have to employ. I've been part of FMCG where cash is really surplus. You don't worry about cash. You are mainly worried about business and business partnering. Then in retail, where stock movement and placement of stocks play a big role. From there to heavy infrastructure or heavy cash requiring businesses like tower infrastructure and then telecom, and now with power transmission. It has been varying journey, and I think it has given me varied exposure and various perspective. Uh, there is no single learning which spans across the all of these, but let me try and give you a more generalistic experience. And what I've learned is, I think the biggest and the most strategic thing which one can learn and one can employ in his arsenal is learning about the cash flows. I think how does a business generate cash? Where does business need cash? How and when does the cash flow in and out of the company? Who are your main cash generators? Who are your main cash guzzlers? Where are the opportunities to conserve cash? Where do you need to invest very heavily? You may not see the returns right now, but may come later. But a lot of cash will be required. So that's one. Second, and building upon that as well, we have all heard of things like asset liability mismatch, which is very important for financial institutions and banks. I think for businesses as well, it is very important to have a ALM matrix in place. Sometimes you have to deploy. You won't have short-term cash, but you need to deploy funds. So when are your liabilities maturing? What kind of cash flows do you have? Are you really funding long-term growth of a company through short-term working capital methods? Suddenly you'll realize your DP limits evaporating. Suddenly you'll realize you're in a big, massive jams with CPs coming for renewal and no. So I think a lot of businesses has gone through that, and that has been a big learning. Uh, Third, and not the least, I think having multiple backup plans in place. I have learned the hard way of not relying on a single funding plan. Have a plan B and even a plan C in place, where uh, I mean, typically in last 1 year, we have seen everything happening. We have seen banks going under. We have seen suddenly a black swan event like COVID appearing. We have cases where on the date of the drawdown, bank has backed off, or equity investor has suddenly disappeared. And next day in the newspaper, you are reading about mismanagement at there. So I think having a plan B and a plan C in place, and whatever number of plans you have, don't rely on one plan. You will be left high and dry eventually. Always have a backup plan in your pocket. Keep on working on it. I know lenders and equity investors demand exclusivity periods and all that, so you have to find a way to keep your teams working on what is the alternate. Otherwise one can get really stuck up, and these all I'm speaking from experiences. Last 6 months has shown us everything which we thought we'll never see, and that's why we are here at this moment.
Super. So this is what experience talks, that cash is king, asset liability mismatch is what we have seen the last 2 years across various firms. And now it's a plan A, plan B, plan C for all the ways of raising money because everybody commits and possibly some might just leave at the last time.
Yeah,
So
I'll give you an example.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry,
please,
if I
please.
can give an example.
Yeah,
We
of
had
course.
we had multiple and teams in their own enthusiasm bring this. We have had a proposal of financing a 10-year project with a 1-year paper, and people were so confident a year ago that we'll be able to refinance the paper. And they said, yeah, transmission is gold, and this, and why do you worry? And today, if you were to look back, that probably was one of the best decisions we ever took of rejecting that. It was really cheap, and the whole thing was you're getting so much of cheap money. Why would you not take it and worry about refinancing later? I think it has just come true, and this just sort of underlines what I've been saying.
That's very, very important and very interesting observations that you have put across. I'm sure lots of people who are listening to it would definitely take a note of it and learn from that. My next question to you, Anurag ji, is uh, what trends are you seeing in the industry? I mean, how are you seeing the overall demand shape up? How are the business margins shaping up? And what phase of growth are we currently in?
So I'll first talk about the country and then about the sector. I think country-wise, we were already struggling with growth before COVID hit in. So literally, the world has caught up with us in terms of our struggle. I think government and honorable finance minister are doing everything to put it back. For the country, it's not a question of a crisis of liquidity. It's a crisis of confidence at the moment. Banks are flush with liquidity. Business want investments to be done, but both on the entrepreneur side and the bank side to take that step of confidence and say yes, I will invest. I think that is the journey we are seeing through, and as we come out of this, that journey will become stronger, is my view. In terms of our sector, which is power transmission, I think we see it. It's one of the sectors which have come through this. There is a huge demand for put in 500 gigawatts of green energy in place. This will generate a huge demand for transmission, and that's why I think transmission is in a very good spot. We are very bullish about transmission. Also on the green energy generation as well as distribution, which is announced for privatization in some pockets of union territories and key states. Yeah.
What technological changes are you seeing in the industry and how is Indian companies adopting to that? And what is that one thing that you feel the companies in your industry should gear up for 2025?
Okay, so I think few things. First, on technology, Sterlite Power is we take pride in our technological innovation, and I'll give you some examples. We're probably the first company to use helicranes in Jammu and Kashmir to build up transmission lines in remote parts. Operations and maintenance of transmission line with least cost and technological innovation. Right now, it's a very labor-intensive industry where people are just patrolling the lines to the O&M. So technology-wise, we are very focused. We are investing in terrain studies to see what's the best routes for transmission lines. We are investing in lidar sonar technology to see what's the best way to put up the towers, etc. So heavy investment technology. I think this sector per se has not seen much technological innovation. So if you were to talk to somebody and say a transmission power company being technological heavy, people will raise eyebrows and say that that's not traditional technology areas to invest in for a power transmission company. I think some of the challenges which companies in our sector will face. I think as I talked about a huge demand coming from for transmission lines. Uh, we have to figure out our first the way of funding these transmission lines, because if you talk about avenues to fund long-term infrastructure projects in India, they're very few. I mean, you given the current turmoil which is going in the bank industry, it's become even more scarce to get long-term funding, effective funding for these projects. That is one. Secondly, I think over a period of time, the uh, the contractor environment has to improve. They have to increase their capacity, because if you need 500 gigawatts of green energy, you need transmission lines to, and there are those 5 or 6 big players who are there. So they need to up their capacity. New people need to come in, etc. I think there is a very important play, and especially on the financing side, is on ESG and the ESG funding which is available. Uh, I think companies will have to demonstrate to ESG investors that they are fit and they are good for investment on all the three elements of E and S and G. Right now, people are concentrating on one and not the other, and probably governance takes precedence over everything else. But I think with this green energy and government of India's Prime Minister Modi's vision of 500 gigawatts of green energy is going to open up a huge investment opportunity, and I think companies should work towards it, attract international funding investors, and it actually helps nation build a fantastic infrastructure.
Sure. Uh, in terms of innovations, and since you have worked across various roles, uh, one major innovation that your company has undertaken, which has given you a significant edge in the industry. And if you could share some examples, it could be in the range of exchange rate, interest rate, capital structure, commodity risk, or innovative ways of financing, cash flow forecasting, ALM. Any specific example that you would like to share?
Sure. So I think one thing which we are tremendously proud of, and it's a IIM case study. It's one of the first things in India, was the launch of the InvIT. I think we were pioneers in launching InvIT. We were there were two InvITs which were launched, and our InvIT is really doing well. It has released immense amount of capital for Sterlite Power to grow. We had an initial phase of IPO where we launched the InvIT about 2 years ago, and then we had a second round funding from marquee investors like KKR and GIC. Today, if you see the environment, you have everybody launching an InvIT, right from L&T to Reliance for towers, Reliance for broadband, and Embassy REIT and all that. So we took that pioneering risk, and I think pioneers see a huge resistance, and they are the first ones to create the thing. So we are immensely proud of it. We created India Grid Investments. It's now listed. It's listed now, and we have already sold them about assets worth 15 to 20,000 crores. And that capital has come back, and we have been able to grow business not just in India but internationally as well, in LATAM, etc. So I think this is one thing which we are immensely proud of. We have also played an active role in giving advisory on the regulations of InvIT, on bringing out issues which an InvIT faced, and we have been sort of on the forefront leading that, and engaging with SEBI on different items, engaging with investors, etc. And it takes a lot of our time, but we are immensely proud of it. And I think this has been one key differentiator in Sterlite Power's journey up till now.
That's awesome, and it's become a case study, as you mentioned. So I
It's
think
IIM case study now.
everybody can just pull it up and read it about the InvIT and the innovation in InvIT by Sterlite Power. So, how do you handle the foreign exchange and interest rate risk Do you do any kind of a VAR analysis, some kind of a stress testing, or any kind of a specific tried and tested hedging model to protect your EBIT? What's your strategy?
Yeah, so we are very clear on it. Vedanta Group per se is a metals and minings giant, and we also consume a lot of metals in our transmission line. Our strategy is very simple. We hedge a complete hedge on the day one. We are not in the business of running a treasury P&L. We really want to fix line cost of the line, and as soon as we win a bid, we are very clear. We take 100% exposure. It gives immense confidence to everybody who's there that we are not exposed to it. Different companies take different routes, but we stay on the conservative side. And same for forex. We have a large international business in Brazil. We are very conservative in hedging. We don't want to play. However, in terms of understanding where the market is going, what is the, because see we keep on winning bids, so that intelligence or insight on what would be the cost, how would it pan out, what we should be doing is very high. We have a very strong metals trading desk as well, and forex hedging department, and there are real experts who are sitting there who keeps on giving us intelligence on what's happening in world market, what China is doing, etc. So we like to be very informed and very on the dot on the knowledge side, but we tend to stay on the conservative side in terms of.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense,
Yeah.
of course. Now, how has been the business post COVID-19, and opportunity or challenges you see out of it?
Yeah. So April and May were really bad. We had both on our product side and the infrastructure side, there was really demand drying up, collection not coming through, etc. Thankfully, that is past us. Uh, Transmission per se was identified as an essential services, though we faced issues in deploying labor and then migrant labor started going back. Uh, but it's coming back. I think we see it. Electricity consumption is back to the pre-COVID days. So I think discoms, etc., are going to see collections rising, and the flow will start. June is, I think, back to the normal times. April and May still to catch up. Uh, I also think it's a huge opportunity, and that's how we are treating it. Uh, I think it opens up a lot of business acquisition uh, opportunities, uh, or partnership opportunities where people are seeing strong companies still standing, still delivering. Uh, Believe me, we have done two large deals within this COVID. One was actually in April, and the second one was in May or June, early June, where we refinanced one large debt and we sold one asset to Invest. So all that happened, and uh, technology helped. We were all sort of negotiating throughout the shutdown period, and we closed the deal. We closed the deal with a bank as well. So it has helped. I think as long as your balance sheet is strong, uh, then you can shine out of this very clearly. If you are already struggling, you are stressed, etc., then this will test your metal and your patience a lot.
Sure, sure, sure. So, Anurag, in terms of leadership, I wanted to ask you that you are a left brain leader or a right brain leader? And how do you keep a balance between your head, hand, and heart?
Oh, okay. uh, I think I'm a balanced leader. Uh, I rely a lot on data to sort of uh, feed my subconscious mind. I'll put it like that. I read a lot. I look at numbers a lot. I remember numbers, etc. But when it comes to take a decision, that time I think one has to rely on your gut. You will never get 100% data to help you make the decision. You will have to rely on your gut. You will have to rely on somewhere in some conscious, some model will be there which will tell you this the right thing to do or not. So that is there. As far as heart is concerned, I think you have to be passionate about what you do. You have to learn to be passionate about the area which you are in, and then only you can drive excellence. Otherwise, you're just doing a job and you will not get it.
right, right, right. And one most extreme life changing experience for you, and how your professional or personal life evolved post that. Anything that jolted you and made you push the reset button?
Uh, yeah, I think it has been life changing for all of us. It has. We have learned to live with it. I was very active office person, in the sense that I wanted to go to office. I wanted to work in an office space, meet face to face with people, conduct meeting with let's say lenders, rating agencies, face to face. Because once you're meeting, you see the body language, you hear, you develop relationship, you meet people over a lunch or those kind of things. Uh, I think learning that it can be as effective on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call is one of the biggest learnings. And now one is questioning, why did you brave that traffic of 1.5 hours each way to get to office and back, and what did it give you? I think that's one big sort of thought which has come to me, that offices are mainly in your mind. You don't need physical space to sort of be in close touch, etc. Uh, and our work in any case is divided between Delhi and Bombay, and we have both big offices in both places. So a lot of time used to go on the air travel, and a lot of time. So and it's working as efficiently or even more because you're not wasting that time. I think staying at home, family has learned what you do to earn a living. So they now know what do you do, and you know what they are doing, and so it's much more closer. You get to meet your family over a lunch, even if it is 15 minutes lunch. You still do. You can hope to wind in some time and talk to them. Otherwise, it was just late night coming home, and then again getting up and going to office.
Sure. So this was something about COVID. Something, if you actually go back 5, 10 years, where you felt as if it was a very very low point in your life, and suddenly you felt that everything is over, and suddenly you just came out of it very very strongly. Can you remember any of that instance?
Yeah, I think telecom was one. And we were really flying high at one point of time, thinking of 4G, etc. And then the landscape completely changed. We had Reliance Geo launching. Everybody underestimated them. Large players said that they are. I mean, who can run a service for free, etc. Uh, and then it went suddenly downhill. You were losing like 20% customers every month. You were losing employees left, right, and center. I think that was a real struggling point professionally. After that, I think the industry learned to, and they're still learning, and I moved out of the industry. But I think over a period of time, the new alliances emerged. Uh, we had our own deal with another major operator, so we started working on that, and that was exciting. That deal experience gave a lot of experience, and a lot of professional, made the CV heavy to look for newer opportunities. So I think if the mind is strong, every crisis an opportunity, is a saying where I read somewhere, uh, that if mind is not strong, every small problem is a catastrophe, and if mind is strong, every problem is an opportunity. uh, and you learn that. I think you can only learn that by experience, once that
Sure,
comes on to you. So I think
sure,
that I would describe as one of the uh,
sure,
tough times.
sure, sure. How do you maintain a spirit of competitiveness without combativeness and aggression in your organization? And how do you ensure the culture does not get isolated in the corner office?
Okay, interesting question. I think very interesting indeed. Uh, I think culturally, from an organization perspective, the organization is very consultative, uh, and it's a very very professional, very consultative organization, and where you are encouraged to speak, and you are encouraged to give respect to everybody and seek their views, etc. So that is one thing which helps. In fact, respect is one of our core values for Sterlite Power. That really helps. My personal style, I think, even in hardcore negotiations, and I've been through many of them now. Uh, I've seen people sort of posturing on a combative mood, and I won't give an inch, and this and that, and all that. And but that's not my personal style. I always try and be more reasonable, understand the issues which both sides are facing, and then come to a solution which works for both. Ultimately, you cannot draw the last piece of sort of juice and be happy about it. So if you're really squeezing somebody out, it's going to come and bite you later at some point of time. Same is with the teams. With the team, we have this unique structure where we have like even fundraising team, for example, is split into two, three parts. Uh, there is, if you bring people together, initially there is a lot of hesitation, a lot of one-upmanship that I got this deal, etc., or I arranged for this funding. But over a point of time, as a leader, if you learn to make it collaborative, you learn to share experience, views, you learn to give people confidence about their own place in the organization and how they will benefit from this journey. I think that helps a lot. So, and then it doesn't come back to only one person taking a decision, as you said, centering around corner office. And then it's a unique consultative process.
Sure, sure. So consultation is very important, and that's probably the culture of Vedanta.
Yeah.
Uh, we want to know about you as a person, and what are your three rituals for the day, and what is the best career advice that you would have ever received from someone?
Okay. So, yeah, rituals. I think if you see rituals, I think one is very difficult to stick to a ritual. Now, probably it's easier when you're at home and you can maybe you're in more in control of your time than anything else, or you're not wasting it. Let's say. But otherwise, it's very very up and down. You have sometimes late nights, sometimes outside meetings, sometimes traveling. But few rituals which I I like to maintain, may not be possible all the time, is at least give some time to self and to sort of either exercise or reflective mood or those kind of things. I think it's very important. You need some time with yourself before you can go and face the world. Uh, Also, I try and have varied interest as far as possible, and it's very difficult, believe me. So maybe play a game or play something, or watch a video, or which is not like work, or read a fiction, not a business book, which you end up doing most of the time. So I think if you have a multiple sort of interest, that helps. Career advice, I think the biggest career advice, and I started my career with GSK and FMCG. Uh, the biggest career advice we got is first learn the business and then do your job as a finance man. Learn the business, as I said, learn what makes money, how does the money flow, even without putting money into, okay, what is a brand, what are or for example, now what is transmission is a regulated industry. Learn about regulation, learn about, don't just stick to your subject matter expertise. You will automatically become an expert in your own subject matter if you learn the business.
Yeah,
So that's one very good advice I got very early on, and it has helped me a
sure, sure, sure. And one fun fact about you, Anurag, which we don't know.
lot. Nothing really. I told you that I like to keep varied interest. So I try and learn something new if the time permits over a period of time. Uh, Otherwise, it's more known. I mean, I play golf a lot, so people know about that. There's a lot of. I mean, I've got a big circle with whom I play, so it's not unknown. I read a lot. I love reading fictions. So that's. I sometimes read at two books at a time. So there's a morning book and there's the evening book, sort of a thing. So I read. I'm a voracious reader. I read anything which comes my way.
Any suggestions on what kind of thing that you last read which really influenced you?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's very incidental you asked this question. I was thinking about that. What are the books which has changed my sort of life per se. uh, there is a book called Art of Happiness. It's in consultation with HRH Dalai Lama. I think that in my mid years changed my life on how to look at this. Recently, I'm reading a book called 100-Year Life. Uh, it talks about that all our life expectancy is growing as we go along, while your defined work life will be ending at a particular date, and you might have, I mean, many years. Luckily, I mean, touch wood for all of us to be healthy, and so what do you do? How do you cultivate those interests? How do you sort of live your life post that? What are your interests? How can you do those things? How can you give back to society? That's another life changing book which I've recently sort of read.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. So, as an expert in your field, and you have had various experience across companies, India, internationally, what would you suggest young emerging company CFOs or professionals to invest their time in? And my second question is, when you are hiring someone, what is that one quality which you really look at a person while hiring them?
Yeah. So I think one thing which I spoke about, the advice which I got early, is the know your business, and that's what I check every time I meet a person. I check two things. One is if he's from the industry, how much does he know about the industry? Even if he's not from industry, because in finance you end up hiring people who are not necessarily always in your industry. How much homework has he done about the new place he's joining in terms of understanding the business, etc.? Of course, they may not know everything, but at least whatever is available in public space, have they read it or not? That is one. Second thing, advice will I'll give you, I'll give to all the people or young CFOs, etc. And how do you develop a strategic bent of mind? How do you learn to start connecting the dots in terms of I mean, if you read a news item, or if you read something in economic times, how do you connect back to what could be the eventual uh, dots to, and it can impact you, and the more sharper you become at it, the more evolved leader you will be. It's a trait which of course comes by practice. It's not like you're born with it or anything. You have to be reflective, think about what you're reading or think about what you're hearing. In all CFOs and all of us now meet varied people across the across our work relationship. You'll meet auditors, you'll meet bankers, you'll meet business people. You will be interacting on, let's say, LinkedIn, or you'll be interacting. I think try and develop a strategic bent of mind through those interactions, and learn how does it impact your own job or your company, your sector, country, etc. And that really opens up doors.
Great, great. Great, Anuragji. I really enjoyed my discussion with you. It was a very candid, lovely, and a knowledgeable discussion. And I'm sure all the people who are listening to you today would really enjoy and take a lot of takeaways from your broad experience over the last many years. Thank you so much for taking out time. It's really nice to have you today at the leadership series. I wish you, your family, all your colleagues around very safe COVID going forward, and I hope it should soon end so that we all can meet in person
Yeah.
sooner or later.